Hello there, thank you for joining me on Alyssa Jean's Star Trek Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and in this video, I will count down my 20 favorite episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. Now, Star Trek The Next Generation is to me the greatest all-time Star Trek show. It is the reason why I got into Star Trek in the first place. Though I did watch the original series when I was a little kid, it was actually The Next Generation that made me a Trekkie, and that's why I'm here right now, because of this show. While I don't love every episode, and I already did a video on my 10 least favorite episodes of the series, which you should definitely check out as well. You will find a link to that in the description below. But as much of a hard time as I found whittling it down to 10 episodes I didn't like, because there's more than that, I found even harder time whittling down to 20 that I did like. But I did want to make it 20. I don't want to make these videos too super long. So what I am going to do is I'm going to go pretty quickly through numbers 20 through 11. I'll probably give like a sentence or two in some cases, and then I will take more time to do my top 10. So that is what is going to happen. I'm not really going to give plot summaries, so I just expect that you know what these episodes are. And if you don't, then, go watch them, because they're really good. Okay, so let's get started with number 20. And at number 20, Allegiance from Season 3. They give us food that Ahsoka can't eat to make him a threat. They give us a door we can't open, and each time we succeed, they deal us reverses. And you observe our reaction. Captain Picard is so badass in this episode, and I absolutely love it. At number 19, Iborg from Season 5. This episode takes the Borg in an interesting new direction and also gives us some very powerful scenes with Picard as he works through his trauma from the Borg. At number 18, Sins of the Father from Season 3. You don't think this is a good episode? Well, you may test that assumption at your convenience. At number 17, Season 4's Reunion, which is the follow-up to Sins of the Father. And along with that previous episode, this really sets up for the best and the first serialized storyline in Star Trek The Next Generation. At number 16, Face of the Enemy. A rare Counselor Troy episode that actually does not suck. This was actually very good. It gives us an inside look at the inner workings of the Romulan military and political structure, and shows us that not all Romulans are evil. At number 15 from Season 4, Clues. The plan has failed. This episode, however, has not failed, as it is one of the best mystery episodes in all of Star Trek. At number 14, Cause and Effect from Season 5. All hands abandon ship! Repeat! All hands abandon ship! And that's pretty much all I have to say about that one. I mean, what else is there to say, really, about one of the greatest time loop stories ever done? At number 13, Measure of a Man from Season 2. This episode is the only episode from either of the first two seasons that make my top 20, because generally the first two seasons aren't that great. But this episode contains what is, in my opinion, the second greatest Captain Picard speech of all time, with the greatest one coming up just a little bit later on. At number 12 from Season 6, Frame of Mind. Now, despite just a touch of overacting from Jonathan Frakes, Who are you? This is an incredible thrill ride, and it is one of the most chilling and darkest episodes of all of Star Trek. At number 11 from Season 3, The Offspring. I will feel for the both of us. Now, if that doesn't make you immediately break out into tears, then you just don't have a soul. I don't know what else to tell you. And now the top 10, starting with number 10. And at number 10, Parallels from Season 7. Now, I am of the opinion that Season 7 represents a diminished quality in writing. They definitely have run out of ideas. A lot of it feels very try-too-hardy, and it was a good thing that they decided to call it quits here. However, there are two notable exceptions to that rule in Season 7, and they both make my top 10 favorite episode list. Starting with Parallels, I mentioned in my original series favorite episode list when talking about Mirror Mirror that I have always loved parallel universe stories, and I think this is probably the best parallel universe story I've ever seen, or at least the best concept for a parallel universe story, wherein a character jumps from universe to universe, and it's the ones that are close together. So when he jumps to another universe, there's only slight changes. So when he first jumps, he doesn't even really notice it. Like, there's just a painting missing. He just thinks he's a little crazy or whatever. And then things start getting more and more different until he ends up as first officer to Captain Riker, after Captain Picard was lost to the Borg, and Wesley has a yellow uniform on, and he's the chief of security. And then it gets really crazy when the whole sector of space that they're in fills up with enterprises, and you get to see this haunting scene of Grizzly Commander Riker, who has come from the universe where the Borg are everywhere. So really, really good stuff. This is still one of my favorite parallel universe stories ever, if not really my favorite. This does have the downside of introducing the Counselor Troy Worf relationship, although I don't think it's that bad here. If you want to see where it's bad, see number 10 on my least favorite episode list. But this is number 10 on my favorite list, Parallels. Number 9. At number 9, The Drumhead from Season 4. So this is the episode I was referring to earlier that contains the greatest Captain Picard speech ever, in my opinion at least. There are a lot of great ones, but the one he gives at the end of this episode in the trial is one of the best speeches ever in Star Trek. I love how he quotes Admiral Satie's father, and it did always seem a little convenient that her father happened to give Picard the perfect quote to use against her. However, whatever. It works so well, and Picard is just so amazing all throughout this episode. And the theme of this episode is very relevant today, perhaps more so than it was when the episode originally aired. It really addresses the idea of witch hunts and racism and bigotry and jumping to conclusions on whether someone is guilty or innocent based on their race. Sound like something that could be relevant today? I think so. And one of the most poignant and also most relevant lines in the episode comes toward the end, and forgive me, I'm going to be paraphrasing here. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but it's when Worf comes up to Picard and says, I can't believe that she fooled me. I really believed she was doing something good. And Picard says something along the lines of, sometimes our greatest enemies will disguise themselves with good deeds and good words. And oh my God, is that true today? Just be very careful, people, about people's motivations, especially when it comes to our leaders and politicians. Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox now. I love The Drumhead, and it is number 9 on my favorite list.
Number 8 is pretty great. Number 8, yay!
And at number 8, Timescape from Season 6. Now, I've heard my brother talk about this as one of the more underrated episodes in The Next Generation, which makes me question, wait, you mean not everyone thinks this is one of the most amazing episodes ever? Because I think it is. It is one of the most inventive uses of time in an episode. It's not a time loop like cause and effect, and it's not straight up time travel, but it involves the freezing of time. And they use this trope in order to deceive both the characters and the audience as to what is actually happening. Because when they first approach the Enterprise, that is Picard, Troy, and Data, they see that time is frozen in a way that makes it appear as if the Romulans have attacked the Enterprise. And once time unfreezes, they then realize that that is not the case at all, that there is actually another alien race that is behind all of this. And it was just such a very unique way of storytelling, and there's just a lot of great scenes all throughout this episode, including when Picard kind of loses it a little bit and starts drawing the little happy face, which was pretty hilarious, and great character interactions, especially at the beginning when they're on the shuttlecraft and talking about the conference that they went to and swapping stories. And then all of a sudden you get your first time freeze, and it's just so chilling and just really grabs your attention, and the episode keeps your attention all throughout. Just a great, inventive episode, and I can't believe that not everybody thinks this is one of the most amazing episodes, because I certainly do, and it comes in at number 8 on my favorite episode list. 7. Number 7, Tapestry from Season 6. So this is, to me, one of the strongest Picard character episodes. I love how they took really a throwaway scene from Season 2 with Wesley and Picard on the shuttlecraft. It took the story of how Picard lost his heart and had to have an artificial heart installed, and made a really poignant episode for the character, where he learns a really valuable lesson in that we may regret the mistakes we made of our youth, but we needed to have them in order to be the person that we are today. And this was such a great way of disseminating that lesson. And you can't underestimate the interactions between Picard and Q. Whether or not this actually is Q or just Picard's perception of Q in a dream, doesn't matter. It still shows really how far the character of Q has come, and it really sets the stage, I think, for Season 7's All Good Things, where Q has really evolved from just being a menace to now becoming more of a sort of mentor, and someone who's really trying to challenge and help Picard and crew to learn and grow, and ultimately the human race overall. And I think it's really fantastic, and this is just one of the better episodes between these two. Number 6. And at number 6 from Season 6, Chain of Command Parts 1 and 2, because I will always count two-parters as one giant episode. And you might have noticed a little bit of a pattern, as this is the third consecutive episode on my list from Season 6. And Season 6 overall has the greatest number of episodes in my top 20, with 6 total episodes, and that is because Season 6 is the best. It is my favorite season in Next Generation. It just has one kick-ass episode after the other. I just love that season so much. My second favorite season, by the way, is Season 3, which is in second place with 5 episodes in my top 20, which makes total sense. Anyways, as for this particular episode, it's really Chain of Command Part 2 that really takes the cake. And You know why. Come on, it's Patrick Stewart's acting. He is phenomenal in this episode. I would dare say it is the strongest acting performance in all of Star Trek. I mean, let's be real. Other than Patrick Stewart, a lot of the other lead actors are okay at best. There's not a whole ton of really, really talented actors in Star Trek. There are a few others, don't get me wrong, but then very few on the level of Patrick Stewart. Also, this is a very heartbreaking and dark episode, and hard to sit through at times, as you are sitting here watching what is really like the reality of torture, and it is amplified by Patrick Stewart's acting. And Captain Picard is badass in this episode in that no matter how much he's being tortured, he always is able to get the upper hand on his torturer, such as in the scene where his torturer tells him the story about when he was a little boy, and Patrick Stewart throws it, or Captain Picard rather, throws it right back in his face and saying, "I will see a 6-year-old boy from now on." And of course, do I even need to say the line? Do I have to say the line? I'll say the line. "They're all fall lights." But as badass as he is, it is chilling in the ending when he admits to Counselor Troy that just prior to that famous line, he actually thought he saw 5 lights, so that you could see that even Captain Picard was breaking under pressure. An amazing pair of episodes, and they come in at number 6 on my list. Number 5, please report to the front desk. Number 5. Number 5 from season 5, The Inner Light. You might be noticing another pattern here in that almost all of these episodes in the top 10 are Captain Picard-centric episodes, and a couple of them from the 11 through 20 area as well. As Captain Picard is just an amazing character. Not only is Patrick Stewart one of the best actors in Star Trek, but Captain Picard himself is, to me, by far the number 1 captain in all of Star Trek. If I were to ever do a favorites captain list and rank all the captains, the only question would be who's number 2. Probably Cisco. The question would be who's number 3, really. But Captain Picard takes the cake for sure. Now, this particular episode is actually one I didn't love when I very first saw it. I found it kind of slow and boring, but you know what? It grew on me and grew on me and grew on me over the years until I just learned to recognize this as a masterpiece of not only acting by Patrick Stewart, but the story and the character story for Captain Picard as he lives through the unimaginable experience of having an entire lifetime of where he raises a family and has grandchildren, and all of that happens within 20 minutes. An absolutely phenomenal concept and a phenomenal episode. And I love that they do bring the flute back later on, so that you do see that it does have some kind of impact on him, because oftentimes Star Trek will have something huge like this happen and then it has zero impact on the character long term and you never hear about it again. Hard times. Hard times. But in this case, he busts out the flute every once in a while, which I think is pretty cool. So a phenomenal episode that comes in at number 5 on my favorite episode list. Number 4. At number 4, yet again from season 6, Ship in a Bottle. So this is the best use of a holodeck in any episode in all of Star Trek, because instead of the trite, old, boring plot where our characters are trapped in the holodeck where the exit doors happen to not be working and the holodeck safeties happen to get turned off to create false tension and do a repetitive plot that we see over and over and over and over and over and over all throughout Star Trek, this goes well beyond that. This blows the doors off of that and blows your mind while it's at it, as this shows us a holodeck within a holodeck within a holodeck until we get to the point where we have no idea what's up, what's down, what's reality, what's not reality. and neither do the characters, so they are along the ride with us, and what a ride it is. And then at the end, when Picard has that line about, oh, what if we're just a holodeck sitting in somebody else's desk? I'm like, stop it, Picard. Stop it, you're blowing my mind. I can't even take it anymore. And I love the scene at the end when Barclay goes, computer, in program. And I've seen this episode 100 times, but every time I still think there's a chance that we're going to end up being surrounded by the familiar grid of the holodeck room. And by the way, this episode does wonders in actually making an episode where I don't hate Barclay. I typically don't love this character, but he works really well in this episode. A phenomenal episode, though I have the feeling I rank this higher than a lot of other people do. I don't care. This is my 4th favorite episode in all of Next Generation.
3 is the magic number 3.
At number 3, Best of Both Worlds, Parts 1 and 2, Seasons 3 and 4. So my top 3 honestly is interchangeable. Like, I almost think of it as a 3-way tie. And I think I did shuffle things around a little bit from when I last did this. It could really go in any order. But this is the ultimate in cliffhanger episodes. Now, I actually didn't watch it when it originally aired because after season 2 of Next Generation, I thought the show sucked and I stopped watching it for a little while, and I didn't rediscover it until I started watching reruns in between seasons 4 and 5. So I missed this when it actually originally aired, so I caught it later in rerun, and when I caught it in rerun, I was like, wait, hold on a second. Like, so people had to wait the whole summer to find out what happened. This is the best cliffhanger ending I've ever seen, and I used to like rewind it and watch that scene over and over again. Mr. Worf, fire. Now, I've heard it said that in the next episode, then it's easily solved. That's because they didn't really know how they were going to solve it. They were like, oh my god, how are we going to get Riker out of this? But I was actually fine with that because of what then happens. After that, some kick-ass captaining by Riker and a great solution by Locutus / Picard saying to Data, sleep, Data. And a fabulous ending overall. Just a really intense episode, especially since I did share with the audience the longing to see the Borg return, because though I saw the episodes out of order, this still ended up being the second Borg episode that I saw after Q Who. So it was a great return for the Borg. This was actually when the Borg was still really, really good. And this sets up for another long-term story arc for Picard, as he does have to deal with this trauma from this event in several future episodes, which I really, really appreciate. Anyway, I don't have anything else to say. These are great episodes. Number 3 on my list, Best of Both Worlds.
2 of Hearts, number 2.
At number 2, All Good Things from Season 7, of course, as this is the series finale. And I can't imagine a more perfect ending for any show. And I've never seen one, if I'm being quite honest. It just wraps things up perfectly while also leaving things open-ended so that they could still do crappy movies. Seriously though, I love how they just end with the characters being together at the poker table and Captain Picard relishing in the fact that he's there with them and they're all together and he wishes that he had joined them earlier. It's just such a beautiful way to end the series, and of course it ties in beautifully to the series premiere without it being too forced. You know, it didn't come across like, remember this happened in the first season, let's go down nostalgia lane. But this actually did it in a way that forwarded the plot and forwarded the character stories and actually made it feel like the series had come full circle in a way that I don't think I've ever really seen any other series pull off. And of course, the 3 different timelines the Picard is jumping around in a very Slaughterhouse 5-esque way, and we have a really fun future timeline with the senile Picard and a Data with a gray stripe in his hair. It's interesting that Picard, the series, takes place around the same time period as this future timeline would have taken place. And of course, they're not going to do this exact thing, but I did really love how Picard ended up drawing from elements of this episode, such as the fact that Picard now owns the winery from his brother. And of course, as I mentioned before, a great relationship between Q and Picard is on display, as Q has now developed into more of a mentor who is here to challenge Picard and make him better. Absolutely everything about this episode is amazing. Well, maybe not the Worf and Council Troy stuff, but everything else is amazing, and it is number 2 on my favorite episode list. Alright, the moment you have all been waiting for, my number 1 favorite episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. And at number 1, my all-time favorite Next Generation episode, yesterday's Enterprise from Season 3. This is the ultimate and alternate timeline episodes of any series. I can't think of any really that do it better than this. It's along the same lines of a Parallel Universe episode, or at least I love it for the same reasons that I love Parallel Universe stories. It gives us a nice little what if the Federation was at war with the Klingons. Now, I never really figured out how this meshes with Star Trek VI, the film, but that's fine. We can put that aside because this episode is so mind-blowing and so amazing. And of course, it gives them a chance to bring back Denise Crosby as Tasha Yar. And just as I said, I watched the cliffhanger ending of Best of Both Worlds Part 1 several times. I also just can't get enough of this beginning when we see the timeline suddenly change and Worf is gone and Tasha Yar is there, and it's one of the greatest WTF moments in all of Star Trek. And then this episode, of course, only gets better from there. And then one of the more underrated aspects of this episode is that this episode contains, in my opinion, the second best single episode love story in all of Star Trek, second only to the one that you see in the number 1 episode on my original series favorite list. And single episode love stories are very difficult to pull off. Star Trek does it in general way too often and ruins them way too often because they're very hard to do, because you can't really sum up a love from beginning to end in 48 minutes of runtime. Like, it's way too complicated for that. So most of the single episode love stories, especially in season 3 of the original series, but all throughout Star Trek, just don't do it for me. But this one really works, I think, because they're in such an apocalyptic state of mind where they know they're both going to die, most likely. So they really have to, rush their love because they could die at any minute. And it's beautiful. It actually works really, really well. It is just one of the many reasons that this is my favorite episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Okay, thank you so much for joining me as I talk about my personal 20 favorite episodes. Please feel free to leave some of your favorite episodes in the comments below. Which of yours are different from mine? Which of yours are the same? I know everyone has different lists, and that's what makes this a lot of fun. Also, please check out my least favorite episodes of The Next Generation, as well as my favorite and least favorite of the original series. Please subscribe, and I often forget to do this. Do please follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can find the links to all of that stuff in the lower right hand corner of the banner on my homepage. So please do all of that, and I hope to see you real soon. Bye bye.